My name is Stacey Albanese, and I am an Associate Director of Alumni Relations here at Montclair State University. The Office of Alumni Relations provides benefits and services, communications, and events and activities for over 110,000 alumni. To learn more about these services, I encourage you to visit our website, montclair.edu/alumni, or give our office a call at 973-655-4141. All of our contact information and social media channels are listed on the screen, so feel free to reach out because we love hearing from our alumni. And now I'll turn the presentation over so we can get started.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Stacy. Welcome to today's webinar, Applicant Tracking Systems, What You Need to Know for Your Job Search. My name is Adam Mayer, and I'm the Director of Career Development in the Center for Career Services at Montclair State University. Today, we'll cover the ins and outs of applicant tracking systems, commonly referred to as ATSs. The presentation will focus on how these systems affect your job search and some of the methods designed to increase your chances of getting your resume to a human reader. You'll have the opportunity to submit questions by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel. You can send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them as time permits. So let's get started. So I've been a career counselor for a long time. I've met a lot of folks, talked to a lot of folks about their job search. And there's one topic that tends to come up quite a bit. And I think it kind of looks like this. Some of you might think is the black hole. And it is not uncommon to feel that way. So a lot of folks will apply for positions online, follow up, they don't hear anything back. They might apply for a different position with a different company, continue to apply, and again, not hear anything back. So what are some of the reasons behind the black hole? There are many, but one in particular could be that the resume that they're using isn't optimized for applicant tracking systems. What we'll do today is look at a number of tips and tricks for a way to optimize your resume, and hopefully we don't experience the black hole. So, what is an applicant tracking system? We can see here with the first bullet, it's software for talent recruitment. So human resources might purchase this type of tool. A talent acquisition manager, a hiring manager, a recruiter would use this software just to kind of make their job a little bit easier. So what does it do for them? It scans, scores, and ranks resumes. The third bullet's kind of scary, but again, we're just looking for efficiency. So it performs the work of approximately 4 employees. So why do we even have a webinar on this type of topic, ATSs? Well, if we look at the last bullet, the statistics suggest no matter what, if we're in a job search, we're very likely to come in contact with an ATS. So 95% of large companies and 50% of mid-sized companies use these ATSs to read resumes. So that's just in a nutshell what an ATS is. So why an ATS though? Why would a human resources outfit, why would a talent acquisition manager need one? So on average, how many resumes does a corporate job posting attract? So let's open our first poll, and I'll ask you guys to participate and let me know what you think. Okay, I can see people are participating here. Okay. Okay, looks like most people have participated by now, so let's take a look at the results. So 52% of you guys thought that there's 1,112 applications or resumes put together for each job posting. 3% thought there was 20 to 50, and 45% thought there were 250. Okay, So maybe 250 applications. Those of you who answered that, let's go back and look at the answer. The answer is, we've got a couple smarty pants out there. 250, according to Glassdoor.com. Thank you for participating. I don't have a gift for you, but you just know if you got the answer, you can feel good about it. So that seems like a large number. It might be intimidating. It might not even be accurate, but it depends. I know I saw a couple of years ago, the New York Times had some research on the number of applications per job posting. That was about 118. Whether it's 118, 250, just keep in mind that not everybody may be as qualified as you. So you always want to apply to a position. The only people who say no to us in the job search are employers. We don't say no to ourselves, so don't let these numbers put you in a bad place. It's just something to be aware of as we go through the job search. So let's take a step back, way back, and look at the process behind this in the job search. So the first piece, a position is created by an employer, the job description is written up, and it's eventually posted to the company website or to job boards. Now, some advice I can give you is that the percentage of success of your application increases if you apply directly through the company website. So the answer here is go through that rather than the job boards. If you're on Indeed.com, Monster, Hot Jobs, Career Builder, you're on a niche site like Dice, whatever it is, if you see a position you're interested in applying to, step out of that site and then go to the employer's main site and try and find their HR page and apply through them. So why do we do that? Pretty straightforward, is that there's no middleman. You're applying directly to the employer, following their instructions, so there's very little room for error. So once it's posted, we apply through their main site. Job seekers, we've got your resume together, and then this section right here, this is some of the reason for today's webinar. So applicants are screened. That's where we are in the process. Eventually the interviews are conducted, and then we complete the circle and we get the thumbs up. So at this point, I'd like to pause for a minute and see if there are any questions. Feel free to type them in and we'll see if we can get them answered for you.
Hi, Adam. It's Chrissy. No questions so far.
Okay. Thank you, Chrissy. Just keep in mind, folks, it is cool to participate. I just want to say that to you. No problems. All right. Okay, so let's move forward. So what does it look like from the other side? What does it look like to a recruiter, talent acquisition, whomever, somebody who works in HR? What do they see? So we can see here the type of applicant tracking system that this is. This is iCIMS. And we can see on the left pane, they've got our information. They can rank our application. They have our contact information. Any of our activity is listed. We can see in the center that our resume is listed. That's pretty straightforward, but there's something else on this page that could be disconcerting. What do they have access to? I wonder if anybody sees it. You don't have to participate in this part either, but just wondering. I wonder if anybody can see. So we know it's got the resume, right? What else is this ATS sourcing? They're bringing up our LinkedIn profile, so they don't have to hunt around for it. They're bringing up our Facebook profile if we have one, our internet footprint on Google. So what's the big question here, or the big concern rather, is that we need to obviously monitor our internet footprint, because employers, in this case, this ATS is making it easy. It's making it like a one-stop shop. The recruiter can go in and check everything. The other concern is that a lot of times the first interview occurs online without our knowing it. We're not even face-to-face at this point, or even over Skype or over the phone. So we want to maintain our internet footprint. So looking at that's not your actual footprint, I know. But looking at this, and we'll open up the next poll. What's the percentage of employers that are Googling us? Okay, looks like everybody's responded. So let's see. So what percentage of employers are Googling us? 6% said 100%, 30% said 55%, 24% said 93%. Okay, all right. So the majority said between 70 and 80%. Okay, this is not a a foreign topic to us. We know what's going on. We just need to know how often it's going on. So, all right, well, let's close this up and take a look at the answer. So those of you who said 93%, you're right. So according to jobvite.com, once an employer has read through our resume, 93% of them, if they think we're a good candidate, they're going to look us up. So again, we need to monitor that information. Good job out there. So I was thinking, all right, so 95% of large corporations, 50% of mid-sized corporations use an ATS. On average, approximately 250 people apply to every one position. 93% of employers are Googling us. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, this is, again, the black hole, right? There's so much going on. So I thought to myself, that's not me on the phone. That's not me at all. That's the guy on the website. So this website called Software Advice kind of makes the internet a little bit smaller when it comes to software. So I looked up to see how many ATSs are actually out there. I mean, how many choices does an employer have in terms of purchasing one of these platforms? So let's open up the third poll and see if you guys can guess how many ATSs are actually out there. Okay, it looks like everybody has chimed in, so let's take a look. So, I mean, how many ATSs are out there? So 200, okay, so 263, 37% of you guys guessed 263. All right, well, let's go back and see who was right about that. So survey says, there you go. Good choice, 263. You can pat yourself on the back. So many choices, so many different numbers, lots of things to consider. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of this and see what we can do. I'm sorry, hold on a second, folks. Okay, sorry about that. So we know there's 263 out there. Who are they? We need to know that too on the job search. We can see on the right, Taleo has the lion's share, a little over 50%. Conexa Brass Ring, JobVite, iSIMS. These are all the different versions of ATSs. So there's a lot out there. There's a lot to know. So how do we know which ATS we're actually interacting with? Pretty easy to check that out. So you look at your browser and you can look right in there and see which one it is, and it'll give you an idea. So now we're starting to sleuth a little bit. Not only are we in an ATS, but now we know which kind. So that can be helpful as too. So incidentally, Montclair State does use iSIMS as part of their applicant tracking system. So this is where we get to the nuts and bolts. So we know all ATSs are different. There are 263 types out there. So what we want to do is blanket our approach. So when you prepare the document, you don't want to use a word template, the first bullet. So with templates, there's the elegant wizard, there's the professional wizard where you just plug it in and it formats it for you. Well, evidently there's underlying code in word templates, and when some of the ATSs see that, it could be seen as spyware or virus. And certainly that wouldn't help us get through. We'd probably end up maybe, unfortunately, in the black hole. We don't want that. The second is to use editable text, like a .doc or .docx, something like that, to be on the safe side. So this is kind of a game changer. When you apply for positions, typically what type of format are you using if you submit your resume? Most job seekers will submit it as a PDF as a safeguard so that their format remains intact. Well, the opposite is true if we're coming in contact with an ATS. Why do you think that is? Because PDF is like one image. ATS need to see individual features to source and parse information. So with a .doc, it's going to see individual pieces of information. With a PDF, it's just going to see something big. So kind of maybe a pretty big piece here is most ATSs cannot read PDFs. Next is setting your margins at 0.5. The reason for this, I think, is because if the information on your resume is too dense, too closely populated, some ATSs are not that sophisticated. They might misread information, and then our application goes to the black hole. If I set my margins at 0.5, it opens up the document. There's plenty of room. Hopefully that allows the ATSs to read the information accurately. Headers and footers, the fourth bullet. They're not easily read by most ETSs, and I think the same reason is because they're almost invisible underneath. You know how you have to double click on a header or a footer in order to edit it. So when some ATSs read that, they might not see our identifying information, phone number and otherwise. So again, you want to manually go in there and create your own header and footer. Last one on this page. So clear the document properties. You want to remove the author name. This seems kind of strange, but I think it has something to do with what underlies the document. So within most of our Word docs, there's an author. You know, if we've purchased Microsoft Office or otherwise, when we registered with it, it associates our name with the documents themselves. But with that, the ATS is not interested, and that could throw them off. So how do you change that? We could take a look here. So with this screenshot, we're saving our document, and this is typically where the information is, so authors. What I do is click in there, and I just backspace it and delete it out and make it really kind of transparent. Now on the other side of things, if you're applying to a position and it's an actual person's email, you're pretty sure it's going to go to a person, not an ATS. What I would do is make sure in author that it actually has your name. So the reason being is you identify it as your document, and here too, some folks share resumes. Friend, family member, hey, I got a resume template, why don't you just plug in your information, it's fine. You know, in a pinch, that can be very helpful. But here too, if an employer gets to it and then saves it, he or she then sees not your name as the author, but somebody else. And that can look confusing, it could look weird. So again, if it's going through an ATS, make it transparent and remove author. If you're going to send it to a person, make sure that you are the author of the document. So again, we're going to blanket the approach. These are some more tips and tricks. Now, in terms of the first bullet with your content, use verbs and terms from the job description. Those words and terms are not owned by the employer. So if we have those skills, the verbs like organize, maintain, conduct, unify, those types of things, we can use those in our resume. So we can insert them in the summary at the top. We can use them in the bullet points in the body of the resume. The terms themselves, if they're looking for particular software, they're looking for particular, say, soft skills, those types of things, we want to use those because the ATSs are looking for them. So make it easy on the ATS and use those verbs and terms. Second bullet, this is kind of interesting. So the old school advice was typically on your resume to use a font that has serifs. So Times New Roman has these little hash marks, right? These little things here. So with that, the research had shown that those little hash marks work like barbs on a fish hook. And they drag our eyes across the page and make the information more easily read. Now, if we think about textbooks, books we read, whatever it is, they were almost always written in fonts that had serifs for that reason. But now when you're going through an ATS, the suggestion is to use sans serif fonts like Calibri or Arial or Helvetica. Reason being, these are very clean. You don't have any of those hash marks or any kind of weird stuff on it. And I think the font, the more easily read by an ATS. These things, who knows? That might be a little bit too much for an ATS. I don't know. So third bullet, use the summary, not an objective. Typically, the advice is no longer to have an objective. If somebody's first starting out and they're writing a resume and they have a lot of white space at the bottom, feel free to use an objective, something like position as, insert the job title, and then with, insert the employee name, or the employer name rather. But most of us are going to have what we call a summary, and that's written at the top. And I think of the summary as a movie trailer. What's the movie trailer designed to do? To get us to watch the movie. So your summary should include information that's relevant to the position, that's reflective of your ability, and that complements what it is that you're going to do. Your objective in some ways, not the actual category. So we want to start with a summary, not an objective. I like this one. The fourth bullet, don't label phone and email. I think this goes for anything, whether you're sending it to a person or an ATS. In this case, the ATS is likely to find your phone and email, but if you send it to a person and you label your email and it says email before the email, I mean, come on. Everybody knows that that's an email. And the phone, like when you put the term phone in front of the phone number, pretty sure that's a phone number. We don't need to state that. Last bullet on this page, many folks have seen this website. It's been out there for quite a long time. It's called Wordle.net, and we'll look at that in a minute. So let's see. Yeah, Wordle creates what they call word clouds. So it finds the most repeated terms in the job description and makes it look like this. So it looks like a lot of information, but it's helpful if we kind of drill down a bit. This is an IT manager's job description that I copy and pasted into Wordle, and it made largest the terms, again, that were repeated the most, the ones that seem central to the position itself. So there's a number of implications here. So use Wordle to help you write your resume so that you can address some of those main categories. This can help you write the summary, sure. This can also help you write the cover letter. So you can really dig down deep and customize these applications. And again, hopefully we get past these ATSs by using some of these techniques. So a little bit more, not much, we're almost done here. So blanketing our approach. In terms of the content, you want to mirror the job posting. So under education requirements, does it say B period, S period, or Bachelor of Science in Accounting? Whatever it says, reflect that exactly on the resume. Because again, we're trying to make it easy on the ATS. It doesn't have to think, it's looking for particular content, and we're going to provide that. Second bullet, list graduation year only, no dates attended. I think this goes for whether it goes, your application goes to a person or an ATS. You don't need to list when you started, only when you're going to finish. Write out months rather than numerals. This again is the sort of clarity and simple nature of putting this information. So if I do numerals, some ATS might not pick it up in the right way. If I write out September rather than 9, then hopefully that's more helpful.
Adam, we have a question here.
Okay, cool. I'd love it.
How accurate is the match the ATS does to find an applicant's social media, such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, etc.? For example, if you have a common first and last name, is the match back to social media accurate?
It's a great question. Yeah, because sometimes if we do have a name that's common, we could be confused with other folks. So what I would do is, and again, all ATSs are different. Say my LinkedIn account, I'm going to take my LinkedIn public profile address that LinkedIn provides. It's generally on the right-hand side when you edit your profile. I'm going to copy and paste that link into the header of my resume so that the employer, there's no questions about it. They don't even need to have the sourcing from the ATS. I'm giving them the most accurate listing of my LinkedIn profile. Now with Facebook or some of these other things, it does get difficult. If an employer is really going to dig deep and people provide a lot of information, they can look at city and state. Is it the same as what's on somebody's profile? Is their cell phone listed? Is it not? So there's a couple ways to get through it, but especially with LinkedIn, I'm going to add my public profile address so there's no question about whose profile it is. I'm actually providing it rather than the ATS providing it. Any other questions, maybe?
Not at this time.
Okay, thanks, Chrissy. So last bullet on this page, we want to stay away from overly formatting using tables and images. Again, the same rationale. We want to make it simplistic, straightforward, so that the ATS doesn't get confused. So kind of a big picture thing here. So, if you're going to run a race, wouldn't you like to know where the left turn is beforehand? Wouldn't you like to know where the straightaway is so that you can then kind of prepare for the event? Same thing. Say you're getting on stage. Wouldn't you like to know the layout first? What does it look like? So with those two examples, I ask you this too. Wouldn't you like to put your resume through an ATS before you apply for a position? So then this way you know what the ATS on the other side is going to look like in some ways. You'd like to do a test run. Well, I'm here to tell you, I'm your friend, and you can do that. So experience an ATS before you apply. There's a great website out there. It's called JobScan. There is no M, so it's jobscan.co. You do have to register for the site. They give you what they call scans. You get 5 free a month, and you can save them. You can look for themes and patterns. But the point is, the individuals who created this site created it so that you could see what goes on inside an ATS. I don't get any kickbacks from these guys or anything. They're pretty legit. I've been following them for quite a long time. So what does this all look like? We can see on the left-hand side, this is a screenshot from JobScan. You copy and paste your resume. And what I would do is not include all of it. I would not include the top, sure. I would include my personal information, contact, because the internet's a weird place, we know that. And then I'm going to go and copy and paste the job description minus the About Company section. Once I have those two, I'm going to hit scan, and then I'm going to get a report. And this report is going to help answer why I may or may not end up in the black hole. So the percentage match, I'm in the black hole. There's no doubt about it. I will not get called for this position. 23% is too low. If you do use JobScan, you want to get 80% or above in your report. So that's just really kind of a ballpark figure. So you can, well, let's look at it. So the report does a number of things. So with the hard skills, these are things like what we're saying of specific software, tools, or other specialized skills. We can see that on my resume, I mentioned counseling. The job description mentions it 9 times. I don't mention psychology, sensitive information, customer service, but the job description is looking for it, and those were missed opportunities. So what are the implications? I use JobScan's report to edit my resume and then apply. So something simple like customer service. Most folks have done that a number of different ways and times and all that stuff. So I need to add that to my summary. I need to add that, say, to the bullets, because I know the ATS is looking for it likely, and without it, I've got a 23% match rate. So hard skills, the next category. Soft skills. So these are those things that really aren't quantifiable, like detail-oriented, team player, that kind of thing. So I mentioned student 5 times on the resume, 6 on the job description. All of these I'm missing. I mean, hopefully I have good judgment. We'll see. But the point is that stuff needs to be part of the resume for when I do apply. So use these reports. JobScan is a very helpful site. Now take a look at this for a second. See what you think that this is doing. So the previous version of JobScan was free, but there are paid features that are a part of it. This is one. This is called live scoring. So it takes your resume and makes changes based on tips. So you can see that the tips pop up in here. And if I choose to incorporate them, they then become part of the resume. And what's really nice is I can then watch my match rate increase. So it recalculates and gives you the score. Again, this is a fee-based part of JobScan. It allows you to make changes based on the tips, and then it recalculates your match rate. Okay.
Adam, a few more questions here.
I love it.
So there's a question about providing graduation year on a resume, and the question is it required? The concern is for older job seekers. Sure,
ageism exists. We know that. People are biased for a number of reasons, whether conscious or unconscious. So to answer you directly, that's personal choice. Is it required? Absolutely not. Have I seen a lot of resumes where folks, maybe they're in mid-career, they're doing what maybe is called an encore career. Do they remove their date of graduation? Sure. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay, great. The other question is, can an employer see everything on your Facebook profile, even if you haven't friended them, and you have your profile set to private?
Yeah. So Facebook is kind of a weird animal. So if an employer is not friends with you and you shut everything off, the only thing that people can see, the only people who can see anything are your friends. Typically, if an employer finds you, they can see your background. They can see your profile photo and a few photos in your stream. So it's not exactly a perfect science. So Facebook is kind of a weird thing. So no matter what ends up on there, we really do have to monitor that. So even going into like when somebody mentions you in a post, I have it set so much so that if they do mention me, it doesn't go into anybody's posts or my news feed until I approve it or delete it. So you definitely want to spend some time in privacy and settings in Facebook just for that reason alone. What I might do too is, borrow somebody's account who's not friends with you and go into their account if they're comfortable, sit right next to them and look yourself up. So then you'll see maybe what an employer sees. That would probably be the most accurate view of what your Facebook profile looks like. Good question.
The next question is about LinkedIn. And if you do add your LinkedIn link to your resume and you've updated your resume, but you have not updated your LinkedIn account, will that affect their candidacy?
It could. I recommend having a parallel profile. So LinkedIn and the resume reflect the same things. Now you might be saying, how's that possible? Because maybe I got a 1-page or a 2-page resume, but LinkedIn allows me to have everything. There's no restrictions on length, but to have the majority, the heart of your resume, be the heart of your LinkedIn profile. So it's hard. You definitely want to make sure that they're congruent. Like an employer can end up on your LinkedIn profile before they even see your resume. So what some folks do is they'll list their employer, job title, their dates, and then list another experience without bullet pointing or describing the experience. I don't recommend doing that. I recommend having that LinkedIn profile the same as the resume. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. And there's another question here about if you would recommend creating an email that's dedicated to a job search.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because then you have focus. You know, I saw something interesting on the Microsoft Outlook where they have focused and not focused folders, so you can kind of filter things into, you know, an inbox that's just exactly what you want. So to create an email address that has your name, something that's a unique identifier, something that's professional, and whenever you go into that, you're in job search mode, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. And here's a question specific about ATSs. At one point in time, it was recommended to convert your resume into a flat text file and submit it to an ATS. Is it still beneficial to do that today?
I think it's okay. With the flat text file, that was, you know, a couple of years ago, that was definitely the preferred method. ATSs have come a long way since then. So having editable text like that is good, but also a Word doc would probably be the best bet, because what they end up doing is those documents, and you know, they can get sent to other individuals, hiring managers. So if I've got just flat text, it's not going to be as formatted maybe as well, or look as presentable as maybe a Word document.
And here's another question. What would you recommend for somebody who does not have a LinkedIn?
Well, let's put it this way. There's some research out there that says there's 35% of employers that get suspicious if somebody doesn't have an internet footprint. So we definitely want to have an internet footprint, and to me, the best way to do that is to have a LinkedIn profile. Now, there's a number of different things you can do. When you edit your public profile on the right-hand side, if somebody's not connected with you, you can dictate what they see in your profile and what they don't see. So if you just want to have, say, the photo or just your headline and your current job title, your location, that can be just it. Or if you want to go the opposite way, you can open up your entire profile and have an employer see it. So LinkedIn, I'm impressed with, because it gives you a number of different avenues to, you know, respect your privacy and conduct a confidential job search if that's the case. But I do today recommend creating a LinkedIn profile and using it. There's a new feature that was rolled out a couple, I guess, maybe a couple months ago now, where if I go to your profile and we're connected, I can see your most recent activity, the things you've liked, the things you've posted. And if your profile is open, an employer can see the same thing. So my point is, you want to not only have a LinkedIn profile, but remain active. So with that, you maybe post something once a week, twice a week, comment on an article, like an article, something like that, just to keep your profile on somebody's radar.
Okay, a few more questions here.
Okay.
When submitting an application, an employer site will often ask for a salary requirement, or for it to be included in a cover letter and your resume and in additional fields on the application. How do you go about answering that?
Sure. So two answers. One is you state a number or a range. Typically, if you're comfortable stating that based on the research, you know, the range might be, you know, anything from $8,000 to $10,000, $6,000. So if you state a range, make sure that the lowest number is the lowest number you're willing to accept based on what you believe you deserve and what you think is comparable in the employment market. The other is to try and say nothing. And what I mean by that, some fields will allow you to type in text, some will not. So if they have a salary field and you don't want to state something, you can just put negotiable, or you can say, you know, interested in the position, discussing, you know, at a later time, something like that. So if you don't want to state a number, try text. If not, and they require it, it won't let you hit enter without doing it, then do some research on the Occupational Outlook Handbook, on LinkedIn for salary levels, and then state a range.
Okay, great. And staying in the same line of questioning with resume, how many years back of work experience should you put on a resume?
Good question. So the typical advice is 10 years. So anything beyond 10 years, employers generally aren't as interested in. So, but some folks will say to me, well, look, I do have experience. It's older than 10 years and it's relevant to the position, but it's not as relevant as what I'm currently doing. So my answer there would be something along the lines of, while I might not mention it on the resume, I might on my cover letter say something like, while it's not indicated on my resume, I do have experience with, and then you can still represent that experience.
Okay, great. Last two questions we have. When creating an email account for the job search, if your last name is hard to pronounce or spell, should you still create an email with your full last name, or should you shorten it? And I just want to point out here that Alumni Relations does offer Montclair State alumni the chance to generate an alumni email account that they can have for life. And they can go right to Alumni Relations to get started on creating that email account.
Cool. Okay, so if I have, an interesting last name, maybe it's tough to spell or pronounce, I'm still going to use it because it's a unique identifier. If I kind of shorten my last name or something like that, and an employer is aware of my last name and they go to search for our email history or any type of correspondence, it might not be as easily found. So that could be a good thing to have a really unique last name or first name for that matter.
And the last question here is about your digital footprint. If you have a unique name, or you are the only one with your name that when you type it in, you're the only person who comes up with content. Mm-hmm. What would you say you can do to control the types of content that's out there from old comments or wedding planning sites, Flickr sites, things like that?
Interesting. Okay, so our internet footprint is so unique in this case. We'd like to make sure that the right stuff is there, number one, but maybe even diminish it somehow, which is understandable. So if we look at Google, because most folks we know are using that, Google recommends that you go to that individual site that posts that search result and ask them to remove it. And that would be the first step. There is a secondary step, but it's through Google. It's like, I think it's removals, REMOVALS at google.com. Sometimes you can get some work through that because, folks who have, if there's unfortunately explicit information out there, maybe somebody's signature is online, there's just information that's not appropriate, and Google will sometimes remove that stuff, and that has continued to rise according to Google. But I would my first step would be to go to their main site, the site that's listing the search result, and ask that they take it down or remove it.
Great, thank you. And you know what? As you were speaking, another question came in, and
okay.
It's about cover letters. Does ATS take cover letters into consideration when matching candidates? And if a resume does not include some hard skills, can I mention them in the cover letter and still be included or still be matched in the ATS?
So, good question. Overall, if I'm ever given the opportunity to submit a cover letter, like if the job description asks for it, the portal that I'm applying to says cover letter, maybe optional or otherwise not optional, I'm definitely writing a cover letter. So when in doubt, submit a cover letter. With the resume, if I don't have those soft skills listed in there, but I do have them on the cover letter, I would err on the side of caution and include the soft skills in the resume as well. So typically, as far as I can tell, ATSs don't use cover letters as a method to parse information, but no reason not to use them on both sides. So meaning have the resume and the cover letter have both of the soft skills.
Great. Thank you, Adam.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar, Applicant Tracking Systems, What You Need to Know for Your Job Search. Today's webinar was recorded and will soon be archived on our website at montclair.edu/career services. Once you leave today's webinar, you'll receive a survey on the presentation. Please provide your feedback, as this will help us improve our services. Thank you again for joining us today. Be sure to take advantage of career services and have a great rest of the week. Thanks.